Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott MacKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
All right, once again, welcome to Industrial Talk. Thank you very much for joining the #1 industrial-related podcast in the universe, all backed up by data, by Marcus, that celebrates you, industry professionals all around the world. You're bold, you're brave, you dare greatly, you innovate, you collaborate, you solve problems each and every day. That's why we celebrate you on Industrial Talk. We are also brought to you by Siemens Smart Infrastructure and Grid Software. Go to Siemens.com, find out more. You will not be disappointed because they have great people, great company, great solutions. They're just great. There you go. All right, we're broadcasting from DistribuTech here in Dallas, Texas, and it is, once again, a collection of problem solvers, and it's massive. It's massive. I've been stuck in the salt mine, so I haven't been able to sort of look at all of the solutions, but I have had the opportunity to go to the Siemens booth, and it was cool. Marcus, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Scott.
Why, thank you very much.
Best intro I've had all day.
Probably all year. I'll step out and be bold and say that. Good conference. It's massive.
It's good. It's good number. Bigger space-wise than last year. I think the numbers are probably similar, but really good quality. Really?
Yeah. Do you have a bigger footprint?
We do have a bigger footprint this year, yeah. But it's been busy. The booth has been busy. So
yeah, every time I go by it, I can't.
It's good. It's good.
Sort of a sloppy onlooker, you know. No. Nobody wants to look at me.
Yeah, you're
Nobody wants to talk to me.
Watching everything.
Yeah, might as well. Yeah, I hover around, see the activity. But it's cool. I got to tell you, it's cool.
Yeah, it's good.
So before we get into the conversation about all things Siemens, give us a little background on who Marcus is.
Background. Originally Irish. Spent most of my life in Ireland. Moved to the US about in Cork, down in the south.
So I had a terminal in Dublin.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Moved to the US.
Hold it, I got a question to ask you.
Go on.
How come Guinness tastes different in Ireland versus around here?
We may have to cut this out afterwards because it'll take me about a minute to tell you, but there's a good reason for it.
Yeah, I digress. This is a podcast.
This is important. This is very important.
Yes.
Yeah. So in Ireland, Guinness, the keg is not put in the cold room with the other beers. It is served at room temperature. But if you serve Guinness at room temperature, there's a bacteria that grows on the lines between the keg and the tap. In Ireland, Guinness has a fleet of people that go around and clean the lines in every pub that serves Guinness every 6 weeks. So in Ireland, what you're getting is this wonderful, creamy, different tasting drink. Everywhere else in the world, that doesn't scale.
No.
So it's cold. So the creaminess and all of that difference is gone. That's the reason why it's different. It's all made in the same place. It's the same.
Brilliant.
It's to do with temperature.
Brilliant. I've never had anybody explain that, and now it makes sense. You've made me a better person.
Absolutely.
All right, let's continue on who Marcus is.
So moved to the US about 12 years ago. Been working with utilities most of my career. Distribution, transmission, all different sorts of software systems. I'm a software guy. And love the industry. I've tried to move away once or twice and always ended up coming back. It's it's the people in the industry. I really like the people in this industry.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I grew up in it, and I back that up. But from an industry perspective, just the stuff that's going on. I mean, if you're sort of, like shiny things, oh man, I'll tell you, this is a frothy market to be able to do that and see wonderful. That and experience it. And like, oh yeah.
Well, for such a long time, we had an industry that was quiet. Nothing changed. Everything was the same.
I know.
The same thing every day. It was Groundhog Day. And then all of a sudden, everything's changed, and we're only getting started. Everything is going to change even more, I think.
Yeah, I tell everybody my knowledge of the utility is when I was a lineman, right? And mine was pretty linear in its design. You got your massive generator, you got the transmission lines and substations and so on, and down to the end user or customer. And that was the case forever.
Yes.
And now we're talking about distributive energy. We're talking about how do we optimize and make that grid more efficient, more responsive, more just removing the inefficiencies, and still deliver what we want as a consumer: nice, stable,
reliable,
reliable
safe,
no drama. Don't care to have for the drama.
That's
right
it.
there.
That's what we want.
Yeah, but
not so easy today.
I was just going to say that. Take us through that, just sort of generally speaking. Like, what are the pressures happening on?
Everybody's bored listening to the fact that the amount of power that will need to be delivered across the network in future will be doubled, tripled, whatever it will be. It's hard to tell. Everybody's forecasting different things. We need to do that safely and reliably. But at the same time, there is this carbon removal effort from the generation aspect of creating power that gets transmitted. So these are two competing objectives, and that makes it complex, makes it incredibly complex. But there's no denying, no matter which way you go on this whole global warming thing, there's no denying that everything is going to be electrified in future. Yep. And so the growth is going to happen, no matter where you stand. So we got to figure out how to do that, and it's not so easy. It's not so easy to expand generation and then move the energy from A to B, because it takes a long time to build these things, and that's the challenge.
I stumble. It's a speed bump in the parking lot of my mind that you have this aging infrastructure that, I haven't. 30 years ago when I was climbing towers, you know what we were talking about? The same thing that we're talking about today, and we have not moved that ball forward.
That's interesting.
Or that football or soccer analogy. Let's put that one in there. We haven't moved it forward. We haven't advanced it. Yeah. Now, all of a sudden, I think we're at a renaissance. Do you agree? The conversations are beginning to be a little serious.
The consumption of electricity was going down. For a long period of time, it was going down. Now it's shooting up again, and we're not ready for it. We're just not ready for it. That's what we're not. Let me give you an example. Really interesting thing that I read last week. You know that incident in Heathrow last week where a transformer blew up, right? Everybody in the world.
I was at a conference, and there were people trying to get back to the UK, and they said, "No, we can't get back." And I said, "Oh."
Everybody in the world heard about it. Yeah. The transformer that blew up was actually, I think, somewhere between 60 and 80 years old. And they were operating at 106% is what I read, right? This is what I read so far. Now, 60 to 80 years ago, that equipment was designed to be run up to 120%. So it's the margin of error is built into the design. The fact that it's 60 to 80 years old and still running is absolutely incredible. It's a testament to the way they used to be made. A number of years later, though, the transformers were built to a higher specification, a higher tolerance. So that 20% extra of margin was not built into the design of transformers that were built later. But we're still operating with that 20% belief that came from 60 to 80 years ago. So we've got all of these sort of things happening on the network where we've got things made at different times with different specifications, but we run with rules of thumb in a lot of cases. And that rule of thumb is not going to be satisfactory going forward we use rules of thumb because it gives us faster decision making in extremely complex environments, obviously. Yeah. You understand this as a lineman because it's part of the trade. Yeah. That's not going to work with the future that we're facing. It's just going to be too complex for humans to work on their own and use rules of thumb as shortcuts. It's not going to work continuously, and this is the challenge for the industry right now in terms of providing software that's an assistant to the people that need to manage the safe and reliable delivery of electricity.
So here's a segue into digital twin. So here's some of the things that I'm bullish on when it comes to digital twin. One, I like the fact that I can simulate. I like the fact that I can do, for lack of a better term, what if I added this and see how it, and I don't have to go out there physically and do that. Take us through what Siemens is doing from a digital twin perspective.
So the digital twin is going to be critical to achieving what we just referred to, which is faster, better decision making in a complex environment.
Yes.
So today, every utility does a certain amount of planning, a certain amount of contingency analysis. So planning for contingencies, planning to expand networks, planning in all sorts of different ways. And the sharing of those plans within the industry, from distribution to transmission to the ISO RTO, is really, really important in terms of helping each other to plan, because the dependencies exist between the networks. So getting that planning more accurate, getting it to happen faster, and getting it to be more shareable, which is important. The communications are critical, is really, really important. And that's something we're working on across the board. In terms of creating models that are standardized, that allow simulations to be run on them, and then the outputs and data from those to be shared between different players in the market. And that's really, really important. But probably what's more important and more interesting and more challenging is the fact that we're getting to a stage where operations is planning on a different time scale. When you think about it, right? So you're planning, you've plenty of time to do analysis and come up with results and that. When you get closer to operations, you need the same data often to make a decision on the network, but your time frame is different. You need to do it now, within the next 10 minutes. And so one of the challenges is to take data from planning exercises, make it available in real-time operations, or to make indeed the planning software available so that it can operate far faster using cloud technology with lots of processors, so that we can now run a power flow analysis to see if a specific scenario is reliable, safe to do in a closer to real-time situations. That's one of the examples of the things that we're doing.
Do you have any issues with the cloud and latency? The latency is not that
really
much of an issue. It's not a self-driving vehicle where you don't want latency. You want edge.
But you can have it, and you can have redundancy to it. So when you're doing those types of exercises, latency isn't really an issue. For certain systems, the latency to the cloud and the reliability on something outside the organization. Let's take a SCADA system where you're controlling switching, where you have a safety issue, you have a really important reliability. That may not be suitable for the cloud, but then all of the applications that sit on top of your SCADA system may be better off in the cloud. Because let me give you an example. Where you do an analysis, and in certain cases, these are really complicated mathematical analysis using lots of data. You might run it on a computer, an engineering computer, and it might run overnight to give you a result in the morning. If anything goes wrong overnight, you need to rerun it the next day. It's a lot of math involved. If you put that same calculation in the cloud, you can burst out to hundreds of processors, have it done in minutes, and have your result. Now, how about you may not want your data to be in the cloud, but how about a hybrid solution where you keep your data on your own computer, use processing in the cloud to do calculations without exposing your data, and you bring it back to the computer or the laptop. So now you're using the best of both worlds. You're maintaining your data privacy locally, and you're using your processing power in the cloud to get things done more quickly.
There are two questions. One, of course, is there's a change management component associated with all of this great, wonderful innovation. So you have a company, typically utilities. It's not a slam on them. They just have operated a certain way forever, and we're asking them to be nimble and embracing the technology even more. So that's one question, and then the other question. So I hate to pile it on, but if I don't, I'll forget, and I don't want to forget. And the other one is, let's say I'm a utility, and I am embracing, and I'm all in, and I've got what I need to do, and I see the future, and I want to be able to impact the future in a way that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to embrace this innovation in the technology. But you brought it up that these utilities are interconnected in some way, not ERCOT, but all the other utilities are in some way interconnected. Is there a issue with me I'm venturing versus maybe one that says, I'm not ready?
Let me take that back a second. So firstly with ERCOT is interconnected with all of the other players.
Yeah,
however.
So
they have their own. I understand.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. I understand. They do have that interconnection with their own distribution utilities, etc. So, going back, the one thing I noticed about the industry is that we're careful for good reason, right? Engineering-driven business, but as long as it's fit for purpose, right? And the utility industry will double check, triple check across the board on this software. But as long as it's fit for purpose, people are ready to adopt, ready to move on to the next thing because they're practical. People, we have practical problem solvers in the industry.
Yeah.
So that's I guess it's one of the things why we find it so refreshing to work with the people. They're very, very realistic.
I like that. I like that. Now, as for a utility that's interconnected, is there any sort of friction that can exist between the utilities? One being more future focused, and another one that's like, we're not there. And of course, I'm small, you're large.
You got all of that going on. Same as every other industry. It's not really an issue. People love to see other people doing things first, so that they can be the second one to do it. I think in the industry, so that's good.
Yeah.
And we have people who are willing to step forward and innovate as well. So all good across the board. And the innovation is coming at a speed in the industry. That's what it is, and it gives me hope that we'll be able to solve the problems ahead of us in terms of the growth that we're expecting.
I always say that with the advent of AI and all of the buzz that's around that, there are tons of companies that hang a shingle, we're AI and we're this. My biggest concern would be finding that trusted Sherpa, that trusted company that can truly deliver. I see the benefits. I accept and embrace the benefits, and I do all of that, but I can't do it on my own because I'm already doing other stuff. So I need help.
Yeah, where do you prioritize? So and that's a really important question.
Yeah.
For me, and looking at the way things are rolling out right now, the first stop is your digital twin. Getting your digital model of your network to the right level of quality is the most important thing. And the right level of quality is an interesting thing. So in transmission networks, it's somewhat easier than it is in distribution networks, just
I can
with
imagine,
regard to volume and size. Forever getting an accurate model of a distribution network has been a challenge, and it still is a challenge today. People say they have good models, and some people may have, but generally there's a lot of work to be done there. On the transmission side, there are better models, but then you got to look at your model over time. You got to have, temporal timestamps into the future of what the model will be or is proposed to be, so that you can run different scenarios into the future. So if at this date in 2026 it's expected that these additions are made to the network, you may have several future temporal models that you may need to work with, and then you may need to be able to run scenarios. Can I add this to the network, or how would I do this on the network?
It's dynamic.
So even within a model on a really good digital twin, temporal stamping of that and then being able to run scenarios is good. So all of this work around is based on a foundation of having a really good digital twin, and that's the basis for being able to make faster decision making using all of this technology in the future. So,
and I agree with you. That's a good explanation. How fast can we, if I'm a utility? And yes, I have some challenges with my distribution, the single line maps. Been there, done that, been scratched out. That pole doesn't exist. It's over here now, but that never gets updated into the system. It sits in that truck, and that's fine for now. That's not. And the transmission, I can understand that. How quick can we get sort of rolling with a digital twin solution typically?
It's a process.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not
a
there
big
isn't
bang.
there isn't an end point.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
there isn't an end point, but the whole thing is people buying into the process and getting themselves on the journey. And there is time and effort and investment to be made. And the thing is, if you don't start now, you're not going to be wherever you are going to be at date X in the future. And as I say, there is no end point, there is no perfection, but there is a need to be as good as you can be so that you can do the best job that you can do. In order to do that, you got to start today. And that's the message, and that's what the way people are looking at it, right? So there isn't an easy answer.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. I don't think there's room for lollygagging and dragging your feet. I think that utilities need to, and everybody need to just recognize the realities of the future and the need for, like you said, electrification of everything.
Absolutely.
Which I think is a great word picture.
Yes,
because I can see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know.
Yeah.
For one last question, give us sort of, with all of this digital twin stuff and technology and innovation, give us a sort of a future, your future look of what's taking place. Like, where do you see it going? If we're just at the tip of the iceberg right now, what are we seeing?
I think we can see.
I'm not going to hold you to it.
I think we can see into the future. We're going to see demand. We're going to see demand increasing dramatically in focused areas. Right, this whole data center growth is a big deal. Data centers will have their own ability to generate as well as ability to join the grid. So the optimization of that within that high energy consumption facility is going to be really important. How these high energy consumption facilities interact with the grid is going to be really, really important.
I love it.
Yeah.
I wish I was younger. How do people get a hold of you, Marcus?
McCarthy at Siemens.com.
Are you out on LinkedIn?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as well. Marcus McCarthy.
Oh, there you go. That's MCC. You were great. I enjoyed that conversation a lot.
Thanks, Scott.
No, thank you. All right, Marcus is a must connect. Reach out to him. All the contact information for Marcus will be out on Industrial Talk. Go to industrialtalk.com and do it. Put that on your to-do list. Act today. Make Marcus a part of your network. You won't be disappointed. Broadcasting from DistribuTech. There's no buzz in the background because apparently we're real early and nobody's here. And the AC's not on. How come the AC's not on?
That's because you wore your tweed suit.
Yeah, that's exactly correct.
That's where they turned it off.
My fashion did not match the environment, that's for sure. All right, we're going to wrap it up on the other side. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
Yep, his name is Marcus McCarthy. Put this gent on your to-do list. I encourage you. Mad skills. You in the world, just in the world of distribution, transmission, power generation, Siemens grid software. You need to reach out to this guy. He's seen it. He's done it. He's experienced it. He knows it like the back of his hand. Marcus McCarthy. What a great conversation. DistribuTech was the event. It was in Dallas, Texas. And as always, a wonderful event. You in that industry? You needed to be there. There are some really, really fascinating solutions that exist that will be impacting your life in a positive way, most definitely. All right, we're building a platform. See, this Industrial Talk is here for you. You need to connect with me. Go out to industrialtalk.com. All right. Be bold, be brave, dare greatly. Hang out with Marcus. Change the world. We're going to have another great conversation coming from DistribuTech shortly, so stay tuned.